Well, all right, my friends, it is time to return to the greatest time in American history, the 1990s, and think about the music, the albums, the good times, the bad times. Good to see you, John Lombardo.
Good to see you too, David. Is that a Daniel Johnston hat?
It is indeed. Yeah, I think I've worn it before. I think I saw Jeff Tweedy wearing this hat, and I thought to myself, I got to get one like that. Because I'm a Daniel Johnston guy. We'll get to him.
It's making me wish I didn't have that second hit of acid before I came over today.
Well, maybe that'll help you. One of these albums certainly might that makes sense for. I don't know. Is there anything psychedelic today? We'll have to see. Not really, right?
Not really, no.
This is another round. Okay, so what we're doing on here, folks. This. If I didn't say it already, this podcast is called 120 Months. We're listening to music from the 90s, month by month. We are in February 1992. And the albums that we listened to talk about right now fall into, I think, a very common category from the early 90s that we've listened to already, which are like tough guys. There's a lot of tough guys here, different modes of dudes, and then Bjork, right? Like it's a bunch of dudes and then Bjork. And I was thinking about like all these different dudes and their energy, a lot of angry guys. And then Bjork existing on her own planet entirely with a totally different sort of thing, and we'll get to her in a second. So let's just get into it. The first album we listened to is called Sap. It's actually an EP. I just wanted to mention it quickly because it's by Alice in Chains. It's their second studio EP, and it seems like it's worth mentioning. It's important for a couple of different reasons. What I thought was interesting that I didn't know is that like Ann Wilson from Heart is on this album, or in these songs, Chris Cornell from Soundgarden and Mark Arm of Mudhoney. So it's like, and it came out just a couple months after Nevermind came out. And so it sort of solidified this idea that there was a grunge scene coming out of Seattle. Yeah. And to me, it just sounded like Alice in Chains. And we're going to talk more about them when their bigger albums come out in a couple months and over the next few months and years, I think, right?
Yeah, Dirt being the big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. They tend to like. So I have a take on this.
Yes, give me that take.
So this is another EP, and a lot of it's like acoustic.
Yes.
You know, of course, this is Alice in Chains. They don't sound like anyone else. I really think I love the acoustic, and they did it the same thing with Jar of Flies. Remember the EP. Some of it's that a big hit off that song, No Excuses, you know.
One second, I'm going to turn on these lights I forgot to turn on so you can get your take looking good. You know what I mean?
You know what?
I got it.
Is this a deliberate attempt to
cause me difficulties, folks.
Cause me to fail? They were so prolific in different ways. You know, it's like we were talking about Beck earlier today. The way, you know, Güero is a very different album than Sea Change. Like he has different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
This Sap is a very different album from, say, Facelift. You know, they're so prolific, and it's because of that. I'm going to say this, and I'd love to hear who out there in the world agrees with me, disagrees. But when we look at the '90s, there's an elephant in the room, right? Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, Scott Weiland, Chris Cornell. These guys, who am I missing? They're dead now. These lead singers of these huge, successful, famous bands.
I always want to put Chester Bennington in there too.
Chester Bennington is in there. Is Lanigan still alive? Isn't he?
No, Lanigan's dead.
Of all of those people, to me, from strict, obviously these are all tragedies. All these people passed away. It sucks. Drugs are fucked up. I've been in that world. I know it very well. Unfortunately. All of it is tragic. All of them should still be with us, right? But from the standpoint of artists, in my opinion, Lane Staley is the greatest loss, the greatest tragedy of all of them.
And why do you say that?
Because they were so prolific and we got so little of them.
Yeah.
I think that band would have been making fucking great music for another 2 decades. You know, you look at Scott Weiland, Stone Temple Pilots had dissolved, and he was doing many other things, which he did. You know, he did a lot of iterations of his career before he unfortunately passed away. Kurt was, you know, just gonna do that. We got a lot of his music Was there more? Of course, and I would have loved to hear it. Soundgarden Chris Cornell lived for quite a while and made a lot of great music before he unfortunately passed away, once again too soon. But of all those singers, the guy in my opinion, who had the most to give that we got the least of is Lane Staley.
Yeah.
He's the greatest tragedy to me.
Yeah. And also one of the darker stories, because he sort of like faded into like
so dark.
Living on his own somewhere.
He was so isolated that when they found him, he had been partially eaten by his cats, according to the legend. That's how long he'd been dead now.
Yeah, and you see there's final photos of him where he looked like he had just wasted away to nothing. Yeah.
And not just Lane Staley, but the band, Alice in Chains, because Jerry Cantrell is a genius. He's a genius.
And this is the first time on this EP where he sings on his own.
Sings on his own.
Yeah, well, lead.
And he made a couple of solo albums after this. But I think he's still doing stuff with they have a new singer in Alice in Chains, of course, but I think he does some solo stuff. But Jerry Cantrell is really a guy who had a certain genius and then was lucky enough to find like his musical soulmate.
Yeah.
Like Keith and Mick.
Right.
Paul and John. Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell. That connection of those two artists was fucking magic. And so we didn't get nearly enough of that. And that's the greatest tragedy of all that horrible tragedy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. And listening to this EP, Sap, I was just sort of struck by, because I really like the acoustic stuff they do. And I was just really struck by the songwriting, the layers of harmonies, the fact that Chris Cornell comes in there. It surprised me, actually.
It's out of nowhere. That's him. Yeah,
right. I hadn't read about this album yet, so like all of a sudden Chris Cornell was in there, and they actually they called it something like they had a name for it. Oh, Alice Mudgarden. They were calling it.
Why is Mark Arm on it?
Yeah, because Mark Arm is on it too.
I didn't know that.
So and I don't know where Ann Wilson fits in there. They should have called it something like Heart.
Alice in Mudfart.
Alice in Mudfart. Yes, that's a lot better. That would have worked. Let's get that together, folks.
I don't know where the F comes from,
yeah.
but it was a
Alice in Mudfart.
It was a great 8-year-old joke.
30 years in the making, that joke. Yeah.
There's plenty more where that came from, people. Stick around.
All right. So
it's this good all week.
We're not going to spend too much time on that one, but I do want to mark it because I think it's important.
Yeah, I would agree.
So let's move on to our next album. We've got a lot to get through, folks. February 92 actually is another, it's a packed time. And I realize more and more that we're not listening to everything. We're sort of curating. What I realize in making our best of, like when we do our best of stuff, we're kind of doing like things that we consider important. You know what I mean? One way. And you said it very nicely on our Best of 91 episode where you talked about the criteria you use to sort of figure out your list. And you were saying that part of it is like
cultural impact.
Yeah. Like what's worth remembering here, and what marks some sort of particular scene or trend that we could recover or remember or think that had some significance to us.
Yeah, we aren't focusing on popular music necessarily. We're focusing on the cultural moment, because like you pointed out, it was a great example. The number one song of 1991 was that Bryan Adams song. But if you talk about the early 90s, nobody goes, oh yeah, Bryan Adams, everything I do it for you, from Robin Hood. Nobody fucking cares. But
a certain segment of the population would, I think.
But not as it equates to the time.
Right.
They might love the song.
Yeah.
So it didn't have cultural significance in that way.
Yeah, and like we said, like the biggest. So I'm just looking up like the biggest songs of February 1992.
What was on the charts?
The biggest song of the month was "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me."
George Michael and
Elton John together. I don't even know they did a duet of that.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a live video. They sang.
Wow. Yeah. But it's like "Color Me Bad," Michael Jackson, Mariah Carey, a lot of R&B and stuff like that. Actually, this is the month that Right Said Fred's "I'm Too Sexy" was hot. February 92. So, yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, what we're talking about with the albums that we're profiling is the reaction to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I saw an interview with Kurt Cobain just recently where he was talking about some of his pop influences, and he's saying like he loved funk music and funk bands in the 70s and that sort of stuff. So
great music is great music, and the more mature you get, the more you know that.
That's true.
I know this for a fact. I've told you there was so much stuff I turned my back on in the 80s that like
I won't watch that. I won't listen to that. Yeah, that's just for the sheep, you know.
Yeah.
That's just for the pigs.
Yeah.
And you're like, actually, there's a reason why the pigs like it.
Dude, my girlfriend wanted me to go see The Cure with her.
I love that you're too cool for The Cure.
What a fucking loser. I didn't go. I didn't hate them.
That's crazy because for me, like, I think of The Cure as kind of subcultural.
So that's what I'm saying. I didn't hate them. I didn't think, oh, they're lame. But I wasn't interested.
They're not Mariah Carey.
And I was in, at that time I was in a Bad Religion, and I was in fucking Bad Religion and Iron Maiden, and I was into the Descendants and Minor Threat. So, and if it wasn't this, then meh.
Yeah, you're gatekeeping your own
So
taste.
stupid, man. Yeah. I'm so bummed about that.
Well, we still do it.
And I've heard Robert Smith is upset that I didn't come.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
Yeah, that's why his songs are so sad.
That's what
he's crying about all these years.
My algorithm tells me.
All right, so the next album we listen to is by Social Distortion. It's their 4th studio album. It's called Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell. I was interested to listen to this album in part because it doesn't have really any of their big hits on it.
There's one song on there.
Bad Luck.
Bad Luck was a pretty well-known song.
Yeah. But this album is one of their biggest selling albums.
Is it?
In part because it was following up on the big hits of Ball and Chain and Story of My Life from their previous album.
Yeah.
So it was cool for me to listen to because I think I told you before that I had a friend in college that was just like a Social Distortion obsessed, listened to this stuff all the time, but I don't think he listened to this album around me very much. And so this was somewhat new to me, this album. And the one thing I would say about it is Social Distortion always sounds like Social Distortion to me. But this album I could really feel, in part because I'd never heard the songs before, they sounded very within the kind of like country, outlaw, Johnny Cash type of stuff. And you could really feel that influence on this album. And I know that Mike Ness is going to go even further into that as the 90s progress.
So, yeah. They're legendary. I mean, they're one of the originators of West Coast punk rock.
Yeah.
I first heard Social Distortion probably in 1981 on KPFK, a late night radio station, a song called Lewd Boy.
Yeah.
And and then they were on I think they were on Rodney on the Rock too.
You told that whole story. We made a clip out of it because it was great. You told us about Mike Ness's house being like
that's in the Adolescence record. Has a song called Kids of the Black Hole. It was about an apartment that Ness had they all hung out in. But they were, to your point, a lot of people turned their backs on them as the 80s went on because they became popular, which in punk rock was a no-no.
Well,
right?
That's going to be repeated when we talk about Metallica and the Black Album. We did, but they're going to come up with when we talk about Pantera in a moment, because metal fans felt alienated by the fact that certain bands like Metallica were going commercial, and it seems like, would you say this album is going commercial, I guess, compared to their earlier stuff?
No, this doesn't sound... Their first album was called Mommy's Little Monster.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound really that much different from it. They are the AC/DC of punk rock. They just keep making the same record, and it's great.
One trick pony,
but it's a great trick.
Right.
For me, anyway. Mike Ness is... Mike Ness, along with Jake Burns of Stiff Little Fingers, those are the two guys that made me go, I want to be a guy singing and playing guitar.
He's so cool.
I started wearing eyeliner because of him when I was 15.
Not every man can pull off the look that he pulls off. You know what I mean? You feel like there's a lot of guys that go through midlife crises in their 40s, and they get a leather jacket and they started out dressing like they're like tough guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like a lot of them look very pathetic doing that. They've got the Costco leather jacket and they're sort of like, come on, man, this is not you. But Mike Ness looks very at home in a leather jacket.
He's the real deal.
He looks like a tough guy to me.
He is. You know what he is?
So cool.
The reason he has such staying power, why Social Distortion has lasted so long and continues to have fans, he is the West Coast 12-step version of Bruce Springsteen. like if Bruce Springsteen and Johnny Cash fucked and they shat out a child.
Yeah, I don't know why they have to shit the child out.
Well, it'll be anal sex because
right. Okay.
And
that's just science.
Exactly. He is that everyman storyteller for that.
Yeah.
That. Bruce Springsteen talks a lot about people trying to live in the inner city and farmers and like simple people trying to survive. Mike Ness is the guy telling the story of kids who grew up in the 80s, latchkey kids, alienated, on their own, kind of, that got into a lot of trouble early and had to grow through all this pain.
Born to Lose.
Born to Lose, which is a song on this album.
Yeah.
Dude, that could be my fucking life.
Yeah.
Born to Lose. It could. The lyrics of that song, he talks about addiction. It's all about self-destruction, prison. You know, their second album was called Prison Bound, broken hearts. But there is a real spirit of genuine strength and survival in it, and recovery. He's very much about recovery and responsibility. So it's a compelling story.
I love it. I always get drawn into what they're doing, even though it's the same song over and over again. It seems like it's very like 50s to me. It's got that kind of like rockabilly thing
For sure.
But there's almost like it's almost like emo a little bit, because he's kind of like this broken guy. Everything about it is like, I'm sad, I'm brokenhearted, and I'm never gonna win in life. And yet there's something inspiring about their songs. I always feel warm when I'm listening to them. I never feel like, oh, this is like too much self-pity.
He has a couple of songs he's written, and not on this record, that actually wept when I listened to them.
They're great.
You know the song "I Was Wrong"?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that song. The lyrics of that song are beautiful. I wept when I wrote it. I remember being a little kid. They had a song called "Another State of Mind." It was on an album. I heard it on an album. Some of the punk rock listeners out there remember BYO, the Better Youth Organization. They did a tour. That was Youth Brigade, and some other bands were involved. And they made a compilation album, and they toured behind it. And there was a song on that record called "Another State of Mind." Or I think it's, gosh, I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly. "Another State of Mind" might not have been on that album. It's on Mommy's Little Monster, and it's about the tour. But it's all about being lost and on tour and wanting to get home, and it was very affecting to me. And he talked about calling his girlfriend on the phone and hearing her voice and getting really sad and missing her, but no, you know, if I can make it back, I'm going to show her she's the only one for me. And it was he's a great storyteller,
totally,
especially for a certain type of person.
Yep.
And like Bruce Springsteen.
And the people that are into Social Distortion are really into Social Distortion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like their life.
I was a huge fan when I was a teenager, and I enjoyed this record. I've always been a fan. But that's an important thing about him. He's an everyman storyteller, and he's very good at it. I didn't just wear this shirt to trigger our friends in the red hats. I think there's a correlation between them.
Totally. And you know, if I'm like in a bar somewhere and Social Distortion comes on, it always makes me feel it hits a certain register within me. It connects to something younger in me. It connects to exactly the feelings you described of feeling sort of like an outcast a little bit, and like Mike Ness is always a champion for us. I don't know. I really appreciate him. But the thing I will always think about now, though, with his voice is the Psychedelic Furs guy, because you talked about that last time when we talked about Social Distortion.
That's why I liked Psychedelic Furs when I was a kid.
That little register, that love my way.
He sounded like, I always thought he sounds like a little bit like Mike Ness and Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols.
Right.
And I went, oh, that's cool. I like them. He looked like Johnny Rotten a little bit too, had spiky hair. And I always gave the Psychedelic Furs more of a pass than I did other 80s bands, although I love Psychedelic Furs. But
it's like, it's a little nasally, like there's something.
He sings up here like this.
Yes.
And he goes, yeah, he doesn't do hard R's. It's like law, you're in jail. You know, he's got a very distinct way of doing it. But it's not fake. That's him. He's always been that way. He hasn't changed for anything. They're one of those bands that live outside of the trends. You know, they have such a strong identity. They just keep being themselves, and it works.
New album coming out this year.
It works again and again and again. They're playing at the fucking Palladium with the Descendants in October. That's the last time I saw Social Distortion was at the Palladium.
I saw them when I was probably like 21 years old at the Majestic Theater, and I was right up front. And I swear, Mike Ness's boots were like an inch from me. And
did you lick them?
Yeah, you got to.
You were polishing them?
And he was just calling people out in the audience. Like, he was just belligerent, and he was sort of at the peak of his sort of the masculine thing that he does. And I just like thought he was a god.
He's a tough motherfucker in real life. He's not pretending to be something that he isn't. And he's been through a lot, man.
And you know what? You speaking of Springsteen and everything, Mike Ness has called out Trump people in his shows, and even jumped into the audience to fight people. He's fucking pissed off. Yeah, I love it.
God bless you, Mike. If you're watching,
we love you.
We love you. Listen, I'm going to say something. I said earlier that Mike Ness with Jake Burns, those were the two guys that I saw when I was very young. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a guy who sings and plays guitar, and it was very much my young ego going, I want someone to look at me with the adulation I'm looking at them for. When when you're sitting around, I make this joke now. If I'm sitting out at doors at lunch and a car goes by with a muscle car or a motorcycle, I will say, hold on a second, there's an immature young male who needs our attention.
Right.
Because that's what that is.
Right.
I needed the attention. I loved the way they looked, and I wanted people to look at me that way. I know what that was, but
we all do that on social media all day. You know what I mean? It's a form of that. Look at me is a common human idea.
Yeah.
Right. And the rock star, no one gets more like adulation than that if you're a young man. You know what I mean?
For sure. Because there's a especially a guy like Mike Ness who is simultaneously very tough and vulnerable.
We all sort of looked at these guys when we were young as like, this is it's like almost like an identity formation machine to look at celebrities and be like, I want to be like that guy.
And I never identified with the guys that were just macho masculine. I never did. I didn't, not the action heroes. I never watched those movies, Rambo and all that shit. I was never into that stuff. I was never into the metal, the cock rock metal stuff. I didn't know this.
You didn't want to be David Lee Roth?
I did not. I was drawn to the vulnerability alongside the macho toughness.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me to my heroes, right? And so
it tells you a lot about a person actually when you say, who were your guys? Because I'm sitting here like, I wanted to be Ben Folds. And it's like, he's just this dork playing piano. But I thought he played it so cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's who I wanted to be. And it's like, okay,
he did play.
It's like, you're a fucking nerd loser. That's
I wanted to be Jake Burns and Mike Ness, and then I wanted to be Ian Mackay from Fugazi.
Yeah.
And then the last time I really wanted to be somebody, I probably wanted to be oh gosh, I was just thinking about who did I look up to and want to be like? Oh, Joe Strummer.
Yeah. Oh,
like
for
Joe,
sure.
fucking Joe Strummer.
Man, he's the coolest.
But so I know you like to see me get eviscerated on the internet.
Yeah,
by
saying things that you consider quote unquote controversial, but most people just consider painfully misguided. So go ahead, embarrass yourself once again.
There's a bunch of musicians that are going to pounce on me about this and just say you're a fucking moron.
Yeah,
and you're right. Mike Ness is one of my favorite guitar players. Always has been. It's got nothing to do with being proficient. I can play everything he plays on that acoustic. He's not a great guitar player. It's very simple. It's cool. It fits. But when I first started playing guitar in the 80s, there were all these shredder dudes. That was very in George Lynch, even Eddie Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen. It never interested me. And it's impressive. They're fantastic musicians. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani. Those guys are fucking incredible. They can play anything. It's amazing what they can do. But it didn't really interest me as far as what I wanted to be. I was into someone like Mike Ness. There's nothing. His fingers aren't impressive. But he is able to infuse the song musically with the same type of plaintive, vulnerable, but strong emotions just as much with his guitar playing as he can with his singing.
Yeah.
Like it matches it.
Yeah.
It matches the tone super well. It brings brokenheartedness and hope to it somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
And it's just like a distorted electric guitar.
It's just a distorted electric guitar, and he's playing very simple things, but they're melodic most of the time.
Yeah.
Or they're just like rough and it just there's not
a lot of effects. He's not the Edge.
No.
He doesn't have a huge pedal board. It actually feels like something you could do in your garage.
It's a distorted. He probably plays like a Gibson semi-hollow, whatever. But I mean, it's just a distorted guitar. There's nothing. He's never added anything to it. Too. It's not highly processed. There's no tricks. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, he's one of my favorite guitar players.
Yeah,
I love the way he plays guitar.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell is a cool album. I enjoyed it, and I think that it speaks to the strength of Social Distortion that I didn't need the hits on this album to like enjoy the whole fucking thing, you know? And he's even got like a murder ballad on here, 99 to Life, where he's talking about like how he killed his girlfriend.
That's a great song, yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is Johnny Cash,
Johnny
prison
Cash
ballad. Yep.
Which Johnny Cash got from the old folk songs.
That's right.
You know, Lily Scholl, Uncle Tupelo did. That's about the guy.
Yeah, it's kind of they're kind of in that vibe
old
a little
folk
bit.
songs. Yeah, that's what they are.
I would say that being a Social Distortion fan, in many ways, sort of prepared me to be an Uncle Tupelo fan. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, because it's like
that's
it's
cool.
in that mode. It's like it's broken guys, but like broken white dudes with a sort of country vibe to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never I never would have connected those two, but that's interesting. That's cool. Oh.
Okay, you ready for another album?
Let's do it.
You ready to talk about Henry Rollins?
Let's do it.
Did you ever want to be Henry Rollins?
Nope.
No. It's like, I would pay not to be Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins is a really... he's a figure that I feel a lot of different ways about. I'll say that. Like
he's not a huge problem. Like he's some phony or gross.
Well, I
or
will
something.
say this: if you I started because I was like, looking around. How do people feel about Henry Rollins? God, people have opinions about Henry Rollins, especially the people that are very invested in Black Flag and punk music.
That's my strongest take on him.
People either have they hate or love that era of Black Flag. Yeah. And he's kind of like a Billy Corgan in that the guy never shuts up. He has lots of opinions. He thinks has a lot to say that everyone is interested in. He's a talker, and he's even put out books. Like he writes books. I mean, he just never stops. And I think that can kind of be a little grating. And I've seen some really intense clips of him online where he's going after hipsters and
he's very much vested in being like the authenticity police.
Yes, totally. Yeah. He seems a little humorless, honestly. But this album, The End of Silence, I was kind of prepared. So this is by the way, this is the third studio album by the Rollins Band, which I guess is the project he did after Black Flag. He left Black Flag in 86 or something like that. So this is the third album, and I was fully expecting to just be bored out of my mind listening to this. And actually, I was quite surprised by this album. And reading about it and learning about it, it makes sense why I was surprised, because it's a little more in the world of jazz fusion, punk rock. It's weird shit. And I was thinking of the bands I was thinking of when I was listening to this were Tool, and Suicidal Tendencies. And I don't know, like King Crimson, the sort of
they said they were very influenced by King Crimson,
even Fugazi. And I don't think they're as good as any of those bands, honestly. I wouldn't put Rollins Band up there with any of those bands necessarily, but I found this album a lot more dynamic and interesting than I thought it was going to be.
Me too.
Yeah.
And there is that's a genre of punk rock. I don't know what you'd call it, but Fugazi would fit in their Bad Brains. That is super avant jazz influenced almost. Yeah. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Improvisational kind of feels like it.
Weird rhythms and all over the place.
The band has a really unique way of moving through the songs, and I would put the Rollins Band. I agree with you. It was more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I wouldn't put them on the same level of those bands. The only problem being they need a new singer.
Right. Yeah. There are times I don't know. I mean, I don't want to shit on Henry Rollins, but I mean, why not? There are times where I was cringing at the lyrics, at the sort of his affect. There's a point in one of the songs where he's talking about relationship, and he's pissed off at the girl, and he's yelling at her, but he's also kind of beating himself up. And he says, "I'm a liar, pants on fire." And I was like, really? That's really that's the level of poetry we're going for here?
So one of the first punk rock bands I loved was Black Flag. Mm-hmm. Saw them, heard their music on a record called The Decline of Western Civilization.
Yeah.
Loved them.
Wasn't that a movie too?
It is a movie.
Yeah.
Their first singer was a guy named Keith Morris. Keith Morris went on to be the Circle Jerks. He's a great punk rock singer. I was very much they have a great album called Jealous Again. Ron Reyes, Des Cadena were the singers during this time. I was much more a fan of that iteration of Black Flag. When Henry Rollins came along, he sounded like an angry jock at a party who had just discovered that punk rock was a way for him to express his rage. Because I knew a lot of guys like that. there were a bunch of guys when I was a junior in high school. I had bleached hair and earrings, and there was a bunch of jocks that wanted to beat me up. And the next year they came to school with their head shaved. You know, and I was like, you fucking. So he struck me as one of those guys that the macho posturing preceded the punk rock.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, this will be the way I'll express it. That's what he felt like to me. Very shouty. And yeah, now the things he's shouting about, I agree with, you know?
That's what's interesting about him, is that on the one hand, like, you look at him and you're like, okay, he's this big fucking muscle-bound dude with tattoos, shaved head. He's always like just wearing black shorts, barefoot, no shirt. I'm like rolling my eyes. Oh, here comes this fucking macho fucking douchebag. And yet, Henry Rollins, this is why I say I'm ambivalent about him. Henry Rollins is always talking about like progressive shit. He's always got
he's
like
a very smart guy. You ever seen his? I've seen his spoken word. He's an intelligent dude.
Right. And he has takes on things where I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I fucking agree with that. And in other words, I don't see him as like a reactionary aggro dickhead, even though he comes off that way.
Here's what I like about him. I think he's very authentic. And I think that does
definitely
literally come through in his voice, like the way it does with Chuck D.
He's
who
very
he is. Real.
Yep.
He's very authentic. He's got a bloody but unbowed type of positivity to what he's talking about. But his themes are very much about people being phony, people have wronged him, vengeance. You know, like it's just super masculine, angry jock punk to me. I knew guys like this, you know, and so the band is great.
There's some pulverizing tracks on here.
It's a really good mix of metal tinged punk rock.
Yeah, it sounds like metal sometimes. Yeah. And that's what I was reading, is that this album made them popular with metal fans.
Yeah, it did really well, didn't it?
It had singles. Low Self Opinion was I think it's the first track on this album, was like a major hit. It was. I remember Henry Rollins being all over MTV at this point. If we're talking about like MTV culture
Liar.
in the 90s, Henry Rollins was. I just knew who he was. He's a very like visually striking guy.
He is, and he knows how to use a camera.
Right.
Like he knows if you go back and look at the video for like Liar and stuff, he knows how to get in the lens.
Well, he's been in movies too.
He has. He was in Heat, dude.
That's right. Yeah.
Al Pacino kicked his ass.
Which is so believable. That a 54-year-old Al Pacino is going to beat up Henry Rollins.
You know, I was in a movie called Outlaws and Angels, and Luke Wilson beat me up in that movie.
That's more believable.
And I always tell people I could have taken him in real life.
Yeah,
but
no, that's the movie. That's the movies.
So the problem is with this record, though, I really got tired of Henry Rollins.
Yeah,
I really got tired of him. I'm amazed as intelligent as a guy that he is. I'm amazed at how bad the lyrics are.
They're terrible.
And let me tell you what I mean. There is no art or poetry behind any of these lyrics. If he wants to say, I'm mad at you, he says, I'm mad at you. You know, give me a scenario. Any scenario. Something has happened. Tell me.
You got in a car accident.
Okay. So I got in a car accident. If I wanted to say, and what happened when I got in the car accident?
You got in a car accident because you were distracted by a text message from your mom.
Okay, so I got a text message from my mom. Let's leave my mom out of it. I got a text message, or let's say my girlfriend texted me.
Yeah. And
I got distracted and I got into a car accident. If I were going to write a song about that, I would say something like, across the ether, you reached to me. I looked to you, turned away, and next thing I knew, all this pain was in front of me. Like
right.
He would say, "You texted me and I crashed." You know, like there's no art to it. It's not just about saying, "Well, I want you to be a better lyricist," or "I want you to be." It's not about there. You can be a very literal.
It's very boring and uninspiring to hear him over and over in this register.
You can be a literal writer.
Yeah.
But if you are a writer, you should understand the power of the tools of poetry. Things like metaphor and things like simple allegories or descriptive phrases, they speak to your subconscious mind, and you hear the music on a different level. We talked about this with with Tori Amos. She does it very well.
Oh yeah.
And this is just, I just felt like I'm reading an angry guy's diary. He's just so literal, and it's all one note. He's so literal about just anger.
Even like that song, I'm a liar. I'm a liar.
I'm a liar.
I never tell the truth.
Yeah.
You know, it's just okay. What else? What else do you have? And yeah, I mean, there's something sort of like these songs are long. Like some of these songs are like 8 minutes long, 11 minutes long. They're like on this Rollins Band album, there's long jams. And I can see how you could be like, okay, well then you have like a sort of repetitive thing, like a mantra that gets the vocalist is sort of there just to like sort of punctuate this jam. But when it's Rollins sort of saying shit like you're talking about, I'm mad and I'm still mad. You're kind of like the artistry of the lyrics and the artistry of the vocalist doesn't match the artistry of the music. Like the music is cool as shit.
Not at all. Because like there are two things. Grip, song called Grip. The end of the song is him just repeatedly going, "You got to keep your self-respect. You got to keep yourself." Okay. The next song, Tearing Us Apart. It's not the next song. He's just shouting, "Tearing us apart" repeatedly.
You know, we talked about this with Suicidal Tendencies, but Suicidal Tendencies lyrics work for whatever reason. Like he's also this angry guy that's like not necessarily like the greatest poet, and yet there's something about the Suicidal Tendencies stuff that worked for me that doesn't work for me.
Well, if you recall, we thought that he had an edge of humor to it. Remember?
Yeah.
Mike. What's my? Oh my God! You got to be kidding me! I'm gonna forget the lead singer. Suicidal Tendencies' name.
Yeah.
He.
Mike Muir.
Mike Muir. That's him. That's Mike Mick. He has like a humor.
Yeah, for sure.
He brings a humor that
Rollins is humorless.
Lets you in.
I think that's part of what I am turned off by. It's also just he comes with a lot of baggage. So when I'm listening to this album, I'm like, okay, I'm into the groove. I love I love how fucking heavy some of this shit sounds. I love the rhythmic shit they're doing in here. This is part of like there's a song, I'm not gonna figure out which one it was, but there's a song in here that literally just sounds like a Tool song. I was like, it's called
Almost Real.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a particular Tool. It's very interesting.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like a song called Bottom by Tool.
Okay.
That Henry Rollins sings on.
Interesting.
It's on not Opiate, it's on Undertow.
Mm-hmm.
And he sings on that song. And very much in the same way, there's like this breakdown in my fear must be naked.
Yeah.
I'm naked and fearless because my fear is naked. And it's just like this. But this is before Tool. I'll tell you something. I dated a girl from New York City back in these days. I met her when we played at CBGB's with Monster Magnet. Her name was Monica Tilk. And I dated her, and she worked for Imago Records.
Yeah, that's who put this out.
She worked for them, and she knew the Rollins Band.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me about Tool. She said, you got to go see this band Tool. They're really cool. And I said, I've never heard of them. And she said that they were a band that were trying to get shopping things around, and nobody was interested in them. And then the Rollins Band took them out on tour with them. And they went on tour with the Rollins Band for like 6 months. And when they came back, they were fucking incredibly good.
Interesting.
Which could happen. I mean, you go on tour, you get good.
Right.
And she said, yeah, they're great. You got to check them out. And I did. I saw them at the Ventura Theater in 1992.
No way.
So he did help them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
From what I was told by that person.
That makes sense.
I wonder if there was an influence on them from him.
Well, these are serious musicians that he's playing with.
Yeah. Reading
about who these guys are, they come from other bands. They're actual jazz players and jazz fusion players.
There's a song in here called "Obscene," and there's a jam in the middle.
Yeah,
it's badass. It's
yeah,
incredible. Yeah, I was very impressed.
Actually, Doug, it's Rollins comes with a lot of baggage. Like I said, I'm like kind of thinking about him and he sort of almost ruins it for me on some of these songs.
He's not. He should have like a more just straightforward hard rock. Like he should just have a punk band.
Henry Rollins, if you're listening, shut the fuck up. I'm done.
You know, like if he went and sang with Necros or RKL, he'd be great.
He thinks of himself as quite the fucking intellectual, I'll say that. And like sometimes I really, like I said, I dig what he has to say, but other times I'm kind of like, it's too much.
Well, I don't know anything about that, but I can tell you that when intellectualism is fraught with traps of the ego.
For sure. Oh my God, yes.
So maybe he's fallen into some of them.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about another rather heavy album. This one is by a band called Pantera. This is their 6th studio album. It is called Vulgar Display of Power. It's a famous album in the whole Pantera and metal trajectory for a number of reasons. It's a really heavy album. I will say that I thought this album was a big leap forward from the other one we listened to, Cowboys from Hell, which I thought that this album was much groovier, much catchier in the sort of riffology of it. But what's interesting to me about this album, reading about it, is that Pantera sort of felt that they were going to carry the real hard metal torch because Metallica had now gone commercial with the Black Album.
Yep.
And so they were going to put out something that like really just pulverized you. But I think what's ironic about that is this album sort of sounds like the Black Album at times and has a kind of it isn't just pulverizing riffs.
It has another dimension to it, doesn't it?
It's melodic, there's musicality, and there's even power ballads here. But I wonder what you think about this, because both of us were kind of goofing on Cowboys from Hell. I think I remember I like Pantera's sound overall because it's just like they deliver on metal. But even though some of it can be kind of like corny in terms of its lyrical content. But I thought this album was a leap forward.
Well, I know you like to see me eviscerated on the internet. So I'm going to give you some...
Watch out. Pantera fans are very, very defensive about Pantera. I'll say that.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I've told the story. Vinnie Paul was a friend of mine. He used to come see us play all the time.
That's cool.
At the end of his life, God rest his soul, he was in a band called Hell Yeah. The guitar player, Chris Brady's a very good friend of mine. I still play with Chris a lot. So I have a connection to Pantera, and I would never disrespect Vinnie in his memory. He was always super kind to me. But he said that the definitive sound for them was Cowboys from Hell. I am one of the 8 rock fans on the planet that does not like Cowboys from Hell. And I'm going to argue, and I'll love to hear what people say about this. I believe that Vulgar Display of Power is a much better record. I fucking love this record.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's to me, it's faster, it's harder, it's darker, it's more fun, it's got all this dimension to it, it swings. I think Dimebag Darrell is just like on another level in terms of, he's got like an Eddie Van Halen swagger on this. His solos are so crisp.
He goes
and fast.
above and beyond the Call of Duty on this album.
He's playing some riffs that are so cool and interesting, and it's so in step with the time. Instead of hammer-ons, he's bending to down tune notes up. You know, it's very there's a bit of an Alice in Chains connection here.
Even the singer, I think, elevated his
I was
game.
gonna say Phil Anselmo, dude. First of all, the lyrics are so much more interesting on this record. He's a much better lyricist on this record. I'm more drawn into what he's talking about, and this fucking guy can sing. He's a really good rock and roll singer. I mean, he's singing. I'll tell you what. You know what made me really go fucking A, dude. I respected him for this. I don't know if this makes him worthy of respect, but I'm like, so Phil Anselmo is a great rock singer. He just doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't have to scream all the time. I just want to. He's a great rock singer. So
I kind of feel like maybe this isn't meant to be a hot take, but I kind of feel like they outdid the Black Album to me. Like, it's like so much realer and like
it's a much better record than Black Album. Yeah, I agree.
the lyrics are better. They have this song that on this album called "This Love." That's like sort of a ballad. You know, there's an MTV video, and I was like, okay, this is them. You know, doing something like Unforgiven that Metallica did. When you talked about like I dubbed the Unforgiven, there's nothing like that on here. These lyrics and the kind of emotional journey that they take you through on that song is just so fucking intense.
I love that song. That song has there's this minor chord guitar picking. It reminds me of people out there watching this. Some of you will remember this. There's an album called Dance With Me by TSOL, punk rock band from LA. I love TSOL. And Ron Emery, the guitar player of TSOL, one of the greatest punk rock guitar players ever. He did there was a lot of these really spooky minor chord picking songs on that record. It's a great record. It's called Dance With Me. That song reminded me of something off Dance With Me.
This is a fucking cool album. It's one that deserves to be played loud. And I realize now that it's considered one of the sort of heaviest metal albums of all time. And I think that's important about that to me was like, you talked about this with the idea of heavy before. We made a clip out of it. And I thought it was a great idea. You said like heavy You know, like, what is heavy really? Is it just like
Loud.
the loudest,
Yeah, it's a volume.
or talking about the devil and Satan and shit like that? Or is it something that genuinely spooks you, like, you know, or has like a craft to it, or some surprising melodic turn that you're like, oh wow, like that's something insightful that you're
Hits
not
you.
right.
It's heavy.
And I feel
Ooh.
like that's what makes this album from
Yeah.
Pantera heavy. Is that, yeah, it fucking rocks, but it's also just like, it's clear they put a lot of craft into this album. This isn't just like, you can find metal albums from some shit band that they're just playing really hard riffs, but it's not going to be like as artistic as this album.
What do you think about the how influential it might have been? Because I'm listening, going, oh, that's Alice in
Yeah.
Chains got that from
Totally,
there.
yeah.
Oh, that's Helmet, you know, got that from, like, I hear bands that are going to make records. Like, I think that this album may be much more influential than anybody gives it credit for.
Yeah, and it solidified them, I think, as sort of darlings of the metal world. Like I said, the Pantera fans are sort of like Social Distortion fans. If you're a Pantera fan, you're like in the club. You know?
I
Like,
know. Yeah.
That's just like, and I think this particular album ranks very highly because it's, I mean, I loved it. I
Well,
really
you know,
fucking loved it.
and let me tell you what was interesting.
I was surprised to love it.
It was in me too.
Yeah.
It was interesting to listen to this. What I did was I listened to this record right after I listened to Henry Rollins' record, and I went, "This is how you do it."
Right.
Like, this is another heavy album, but Phil Anselmo's lyrics and singing match whatever the songs do. Wherever the songs go, he's there with the right tone.
He can sing
The
soft.
right ability to sing,
Yeah.
the right ability to speak, scream, whatever you need to do, he can do it all. Whereas with Henry, wherever the song goes, he's still whoa, 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 no matter what. You know, he's just chopping away at it. And so he's not, Phil Anselmo is not a one note. He's got skills. And
Yeah, and like
it was
visually, him and Henry Rollins looked the same. They both
Yeah.
were like, you know, shaved head,
Yeah.
shirts off kind of guys, you know,
Yeah.
tough guys. But I feel like Phil Anselmo is doing something so much more intense.
for sure.
Yeah.
Way more impressive from the standpoint of a guy who's singing in front of a band that has this is a band like Rollins Band and Pantera have a formidable musical experience for you.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I don't think Henry Rollins is able to bring a formidable frontman experience,
Right.
but Phil does.
Yeah.
He matches the band.
Totally. This was great. Okay.
I've never heard a song that rocks harder. There's a song on this album called Regular People.
Yeah.
And in Hypotheticals Conceit. I've never fucking heard a song that rocks harder than that.
Dude, that was the one that I was like, when John comes over, I want to crank that one up on the system, because that was the one that I was listening to wherever I was, and I was like, these riffs are fucking so intense. Like, this is just fucking real hard rock that sounds so cool. I love it.
Pantera fans will go, duh, fuckhead.
Yeah, totally.
And I get it, but this is the record, like, sitting and listening to this record. I've always heard what a guitar genius Dimebag Darrell was,
Yeah,
and I've never gotten it. And when I sat and listened to this record, I went, oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, me too.
I'm in. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's cool videos for these songs too that are on YouTube that I watched.
Did you like the song "By Demons Be Driven"?
Yeah, and there's another example of like, they're gonna be talking in the world of demons and shit like that, but it connects to something real,
And it's and musically, like, Tony Iommi would be proud.
right?
It was so good, you know.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
fucking loved it. Okay, so let's switch gears dramatically, and talk about this Sugarcubes album. We got to talk about this album in part because it's the last album from the Icelandic band Sugarcubes. It's their third final studio album called Stick Around for Joy.
Pretty much the same thing as Rollins Band and Pantera.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat.
Right. No. It was weird. It's actually really jarring to go from Pantera to Sugarcubes. But, you know, Bjork, who is their lead singer, is going to go solo this same year. I think her debut album is 93.
Oh, is it?
But it's coming
called
soon.
Debut, yeah.
And you know, we'll talk about her when we get to that solo stuff, because I think you and I have both said that we consider Bjork one of the best artists of the entire era. maybe one of the best
I
artists
think-
just working now at all.
I think Bjork is one of the 5 coolest humans on the planet.
Yeah, for
She's
sure.
Such a fucking
And not just
genius.
this era, but like any era. Like she's one of the coolest humans to ever live.
I would pay money to watch her drink coffee.
Right. Well, you know what's funny is she doesn't come to the United States very much.
Yeah.
Claudia loves Bjork, like she's obsessed with Bjork. We have so many of her albums, and she has never seen her live because she doesn't come to North America very much.
Yeah.
She's in Iceland, but then you see these clips of her on like Instagram where she goes to like coffee houses in Iceland and like DJ sets on her laptop, and it's just like there's just a few people there, and I'm like, I would go and just see that. Don't even have to hear her
go to
sing.
Iceland.
Right.
Yeah.
She's actually sings on a new track by this artist Rosalia. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a singer, Spanish singer, and she's on a song that she just performed with her in Britain. So she's starting to do stuff again. I think maybe she'll have a new album out. Anyway, we're talking about Sugarcubes, which is sort of like, it's funny that she started off in this sort of like pop band.
Yeah, very Britpop.
Right. And they're the biggest Icelandic band ever, which I don't know if that's saying much because it's such a small country and their output culturally hasn't hit the mainstream as much as
Are we gonna
other places.
Are we gonna take over that country too?
I think so.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Well, I hope
So
so.
we'll
Yeah.
fix all
We
that.
deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iceland, brought to you by Walmart.
So what do you think of this album? This was sort of
I loved it, man.
Really?
So, but it's so look. Like Bjork could fart and I'd give it a gold star.
Right.
I just love her so much.
Yeah.
She's such a singular genius to me. And does she even sing? You know what she does is not really even singing. She's just like this primal force screaming and whispering
like
and
an
jumping.
alien. Yeah.
She's just spectacular. She can't go wrong for me. So I'm super I'm super drawn to her. I'm super like I'm not objective. She's invented her own form of expression, in my opinion. You could call it singing. There's like 8 different melodies in every song,
Yeah.
and she sings in all these different voices. To me, her singing is so primal. It's like she's using different parts of her body to make different sounds.
She overwhelms the band, though. You have to say that, right?
Yeah, the
Like,
band. Look,
It's the opposite of the Rollins Band thing. You know what I mean? Like the front person of this band, Sugarcubes, is so spectacular that it sort of like overwhelms everything else that's
it
happening.
overshadows it.
Yes,
For sure. Of course.
because the production here is just sort of like basic poppy sort of songs. They all sound like kind of happy.
I feel it's like this album would have been huge in 1986.
Yeah.
You
well,
know?
I mean, I don't think it did that poorly. I mean, it had some singles that came out, and it was. I mean, I remember knowing who the Sugarcubes were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
But Bjork's solo stuff goes into, like, musically, just
All over the
some of
place.
the like deepest fucking arty shit.
Have you listened to that record I bought you?
Yeah, of course. That's like
Isn't that
that's
so
like
cool?
folk song stuff, right?
No, it's like
It sounds like a Christmas album.
it's like a Christmas. It's
Yeah.
like, but it's with an orchestra. Like it's
Right.
Gling, glow,
Right. It is, but it
yeah.
is folk music. I think like some of
it
they're like
is.
folk standards from Iceland.
She does "Oh My Papa" in Icelandic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and she does "Can't Help Loving That."
I think you're right in the sense of like it doesn't even matter what the band is doing. If Bjork is there, I'm listening to it.
It's true.
Yeah.
She's done so much. So there's first of all, you said she overshadows the band. Yes, but not totally. This band has a great rhythm section.
Yeah, I did notice that.
They
this
really-
is a drum-heavy album, actually.
They make the music. They play the music up to another level. That rhythm section. So I have to say this. Sigtryggur Baldursson. Forgive me if I said your name wrong. Sigtryggur Baldursson. You are a fucking great drummer. I love bands that build their music on interesting rhythms. Talking Heads do this.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
That original rhythm section of Talking Heads, you know, it's on the early stuff,
Yep.
like Remain in Light.
Oh, God.
You
Yeah.
know, Life During Wartime. That song. It's Tina Weymouth and who's the drummer? Jerry Harrison, the guitar player, drummer. Talking Heads. I'm losing my freaking mind trying to remember this. Anyway, that rhythm section of Talking.
Chris France.
Yes, Chris
Yeah.
France. That rhythm section, that music isn't the same if they're not playing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Same here. These guys play this music up to a different level.
Yeah, my comment wasn't meant to say that the band is shitty. It was more to say that Bjork is
She
the
overshadows
star here.
it.
Yeah,
You can't
Right.
you can't help it. But they also, there's a couple things about this. So there's a male vocalist involved here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of those guys that, like, he's got an innocence. Sometimes he raps and has no business rapping, but it's all
It sounds like the B-52s.
it's very B-52s.
Yes.
Girl singer, guy speaker. You know, like a hype guy almost. Yeah, he's very much like a B-52s. But he also, I have to tell you this. A long time ago, I was in an 80s band, a show band in Vegas called the Whippets. And we were based on a Saturday Night Live sketch. So there's a lot of this in places like Vegas, show bands that are a mixture of music, but there's also some costumes and character involved in it. Okay. And this particular band we were in was based on a Saturday Night Live sketch called Sprockets.
Yeah, I remember this.
And Mike Myers was Dieter.
Yes.
And he was in a black turtleneck and glasses, and I wore a wig, and I had a little fake monkey on my shoulder. Do you want to touch my monkey?
Yeah.
Now is the time on Sprockets when we dance. This guy reminds me so much of Dieter.
For sure.
When he's talking,
Yes.
chiming in and saying things, I would just start cracking up
Yeah.
listening to it.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought this is a weird, like, bizarro world B-52, Euro B-52s.
Yeah, for sure. Because Fred doesn't, Fred just, I see a fainted sign by the side of the road. He's got a very weird American
Yes.
thing that he does. This is a very, same thing, strange, Icelandic, obviously,
Yep.
accent, and very much so. I agree with you.
So yeah, I really like this album, and it makes me. All it did was like made me really anticipate talking about Bjork's solo stuff that's gonna come out and have a lot of influence. But it's funny because, like, as influential in its own way that Bjork's stuff is, and how powerful figure she is in the '90s, she, like you said, she is like totally otherworldly. She's like totally unique. There's no one else that I'm like, oh, who's like Bjork? Like, who's the other singer that's just like Bjork? You know what I mean? Like, I can't.
She's like she's an elemental spirit. She's like a tree sprite.
There's no one else who's even tried to sing like her.
No, she's just nobody can. This goes back to something we've talked about a lot. I said this about a few people. I think Tori Amos was one of the people I said this about. Like, they're inspirational without being influential.
Right.
So I think that you'd probably find a lot of artists inspired by Bjork, but nobody influenced by her, because you can't do it. You can't have a Bjork feel to you. It's so weird. It's so otherworldly and coming from some other place. You can't. You'd just be an idiot if you tried to sound like her. You know, it's just not possible.
It's also really interesting to me, though, that she becomes such a darling of, like, the American hip scene in the 90s. That, like, that video, It's Oh So Quiet. Spike Jonze is directing it, and you're all of a sudden like, I mean, watching MTV as a young American teenager, I was like, oh, this Icelandic woman is someone I should be paying attention to, because Spike Jonze is directing videos. He's the same guy that does the Beastie Boys. She's like in this world of like hipster music,
and yet she's a magical river fairy.
Right, exactly. That's what's so weird. There's no one else like her.
Yeah, she's spectacular.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna.
When her album comes out, I'm gonna lose my.
Yeah, we love Bjork.
We love Bjork.
And Sugarcubes albums. I will say this is my least favorite Sugarcubes album. There's 3 of them. The other 2 are better to me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But this was fun to listen to. I enjoyed every bit of it. Okay, so one last album before we go. This one is called Propeller. It's by a band we talked about before called Guided by Voices. Now, this is a band that, for me, I struggle to, and maybe I said this before, I struggle to like put an identity on Guided by Voices, because their music is so, I mean, it kind of feels British a little bit, like British invasion stuff.
Why do you have to put an identity on it? Why do you have to put everything in a fucking box,
Well,
man? What's wrong with you?
Well, what I mean is,
Not an artist.
Yeah, doesn't get it. What I mean by that is, you know what I mean by that, John.
I know exactly what you mean by
it. Like,
let me see
like
if
I
I
would
can
never
help
be
you.
able to be like, if you put on Guided by Voices, I'd never be able to be like, oh, this is Guided by Voices.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think it's because they are... I had sort of listening to this record, and I knew who they were in the 90s. I listened to them some. I think the same thing about them now as I did then. They're like 30% genius, 70% whatever.
Right.
There's some great songs in there. There's always a few great songs, but for me, their records are always mostly filler. Always, I've always felt that
They're
way.
way too prolific. They put out like fucking 40 tracks on
Yeah,
every
you're
album.
right. You're right. There's no. They haven't have one song on this album, the serious or where it actually is just different clips of song. Like
Right.
There's a verse. and
Well,
then
they're known for these snippets.
Yeah.
Like they make like 45-second snippets of songs.
but this
rather
is
than,
one song.
Yeah.
and it changes like 8 times. in
Oh,
the
is that
song.
the first one?
No, it's
No.
called Sirius Radio or
Okay.
Well, if you got a track list and you go down,
Back to Saturn X Radio Report.
that's it.
Yep.
Each verse of the song is a completely different song.
Yeah.
So an interesting idea, hard to listen to, but I had sort of a revelation about Guided by Voices yesterday listening to them, and I wonder if this helps you. They are a band that was they were around in the 80s, but they're really known for their output in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they were part of this lo-fi underground alternative indie rock scene that became so popular in the 90s. And so they're lumped in with that. But a lot of that music is considered the offspring of punk and metal.
Mm-hmm.
This is not. They have nothing in common with that music.
Right.
Almost nothing in common. They're coming from like a British invasion.
Right.
Their songs connect to like Kids Are All Right era Who, or Meaty Beaty Big and Bouncy by the Who. Even some Beatles stuff, early Beatles stuff, and then huge DNA connection. We talk about DNA to Big Star, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. I can hear that.
They almost entirely, not completely, but almost entirely circumnavigate punk and metal, and then show up in this lo-fi, trashy playing, but with a very 60s sound, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they remind me of Ween a little bit in a sense, not necessarily like they sound like Ween, but they're just some guys fucking around with their tape machine, recording whatever comes to them, and they have a lot of talent. Obviously, they're good with melodies. And they have a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Like I like one of my favorite things about this album, honestly, was just the names of the songs: Weed King, Particular Damaged, Metal Mothers, Unleashed, The Large-Hearted Boy, 14 Cheerleader Cold Front, Ergo Space Pig, Some Drilling Implied. They're like clever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're clever wordsmiths.
Yeah.
And they're clearly just have a lot of fucking ideas.
Plus, Robert Pollard is hammered.
Yeah, I was reading about that. They're like legendary for being utter fucking wastoids.
I never saw them live, but I hear that he was always just shit-faced on stage. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, honestly. It's just like they're kind of like out there guys. I draw. I mean, it's interesting you said Ween. I get it. Yeah.
I draw the most. They don't sound like them, but in terms of just being a bunch of guys who sound like they're just fucking around and trying anything, and it just ends up being really cool.
Yeah.
Is Pavement.
Oh,
They remind me a little bit of Pavement. Now, I love Pavement. I don't love Guided by Voices.
Right.
I think Pavement hits the mark a lot more often.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is a big genre. Is this sort of like lo-fi? We record a ton of shit,
Sloppy,
and some of it's great,
tongue in cheek.
Because I mean, if you remember, both of us really loved that Sebado album. That was
so good.
3. That was just a lot of that, and I felt like there were the percentage of gems among the mess there was very high.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas with Guided by Voices, it's more like, oh, I like that one, and then there's 4 songs that are like whatever.
It's a lot of filler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm willing to accept if you're a Guided by Voices fan out there, and maybe you're going, you know what, it's a joke and you don't get it. Maybe that's true.
Yeah,
maybe that's true.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't love everything. I mean, maybe you can.
I tried when I was in high school.
Yeah, I saw Guided by Voices. They were one of those bands that showed up and played a free show at Amoeba Records when I was just there buying records, and they're like, "Oh, Guided by Voices is going to play here."
You told me about that.
Yeah, and
That's cool.
the same thing happened with Flaming Lips,
Jesus.
which is kind of incredible. I was again like I could lick Wayne Coyne's boots. I was right there in front of them. But with Guided by Voices, I remember being like, "Oh, who are these guys?" and reading about them and being like, "Oh, if I'm an indie rock guy, I should be into it." But I couldn't get into it, which is a funny phenomenon where you think like, I should be into this, and yet I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is a funny phenomenon. Like that shows you that the
scenesterism doesn't always work.
Yeah, but that it's there.
Right.
Like, why should you be into anything
Yeah.
unless you like it?
Well, it's funny.
But I had the same thing.
Well, we got to go. But I'll add one last story about that, which I think you'd be interested in. With Lou Reed, I was really young, like maybe a teenager, when I thought I should be into Lou Reed. Like people, I'm reading Rolling Stone. I keep hearing his name. I should be into this. It's something. And I got an album that was called Lou Reed in the 70s. And it was just like, I think it's called Different Times. And I was just kind of like, I don't get this. And I was like trying to get it. You know what I mean? Like, I should get it. If I want to be a smart hipster guy, I got to know who Lou Reed is. But what's funny is as I get older, Lou Reed stuff, I get it more and more. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I do know exactly what you mean.
And especially these albums we've been listening to where he's like an older guy coming in terms of mortality and things like that. Now I'm just like, oh my God. I get Lou Reed. I actually regret how much I get Lou Reed now.
Yeah. And the inverse is true.
Yeah.
I told Della yesterday, we were listening to Rollins Band, and she's like, what is this? And we were talking about it, and I said, I feel like I outgrew this music when I was like 17.
Yeah.
You know, a long time ago.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't really listen to Ben Folds 5 anymore. I was really into it when I was 20. And listening to it again when it comes up, because it'll come up at some point, and if we make it to 1997 or 6 or something like that, I wonder how I'll feel about it, because it's sort of like some of it will work for me, but a lot of it is just kind of like it comes with the baggage of listening to it when you were young, and it's also like your taste changes as you get older.
You know what would be a fun exercise to do on the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Have us each take a week. So we take a week off,
right?
And we come back with our top 10 records from our youth that hold up.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
That you still go, wow.
Well, you know, it's funny because it's sort of ironic that we're doing this podcast, because I don't really listen to that much 90s music now. You know what I mean? Like, but we've talked about this before. The artists that I listen to the most from the 90s, maybe Weezer, but also PJ Harvey and Bjork. They don't feel like they're stuck in the 90s to me.
Not at all.
That music still, and Radiohead. I still listen to Radiohead. Yeah. Like, that stuff is timeless to me. But a lot of other stuff, and including a lot of stuff we're listening to on this podcast, I partly wanted to go back just to sort of like be in this world, and sort of understand what the 90s were really about, because I missed a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't, it would be a good experiment. Like, what holds up?
100%. Like, just as good as the first time you ever listened to it.
So what was your favorite album this month? Was it Pantera?
Oh,
Isn't that funny?
My favorite record this month, it was probably the Social D record, just because that's my thing, you know, punk rock.
I would still listen to that.
And close second would be probably the Pantera record, just because I didn't expect to like it so much. Mm-hmm. But then right after that, I love hearing Bjork.
Yeah.
My least favorite would have been Henry.
Yeah, sorry, Henry.
Henry doesn't give a fuck what we think.
That's for sure. But you know what? Maybe he'll come on this podcast and explain to us. You know,
Henry Rollins, you got a lot of explaining to do.
All right, John. Well, we'll see you again for March 1992.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.